Good morning, good evening, everyone. Mary Hunt here at Water, actually from home, not from the office. And my colleague Wed, who is at her house tonight. We've been in the office all day, so we're happily ensconced in our own homes. Here comes Rosemary Ganley. So I want to welcome all of you. It's Monday, March 10th, or if you're in Australia, it's Tuesday, March 11th. It's 7:30 at night on the East Coast here in the US. And I want to welcome you to the third meditation of 2025, with a small group of us sharing our experiences of meditation. It's kind of a different format. It's not kind of, it's a different format than usual, but I hope we'll all find it useful in our various ways. And I want to thank my colleagues for agreeing to experiment in this way, especially those who are going to speak. I know that Brad and Cynthia and Adrienne will open our eyes and our ears and our hearts. What could be more useful than contemplation in these frankly terrible times of national chaos and global unrest? I also thank Magdalena and Absentia and Wed, my water colleagues, for their IT skills tonight. Um, Without them, we at Water would be scratching in the sand with a stick. So uh, they are really essential to everything. As have been other interns before them, and will be other interns happily after them. But really and truly, we are only as good as our interns. Last month, Cynthia Tootle, here present, brought us into close connection with Kuan Yin, the bodhisattva of compassion, and this great goddess, she who hears the cries of the earth, surely hears our cries this week. You can review that wonderful session and use it as you will. It's on our website at www.waterwomensalliance.org under programs. We always send this out afterwards in the notes, but if you're ever looking for it, you go to programs and then you hit Water Meditations, and then up come the videos and the notes from them. So let's begin as we always do with the land acknowledgement, and then I'll explain something about our program tonight. This is something that we at Water have incorporated into our programs to remind us of why we do what we do and what we need to do more of, given the systemic injustice that Indigenous and other people of color suffer in this country, and I'm sure in other countries as well. A land acknowledgement, as we always say, is a beginning, not an end. We at Water are on Indigenous land in Silver Spring, Maryland, the traditional and contemporary land of the Piscataway and Anacostan peoples. We acknowledge the trauma and injustice toward Indigenous people that is so deep in U.S. culture and history. We join in efforts to eradicate it and to make reparations for the genocide involved. Water's work is aimed to bring about social justice, so please consider at this sitting the Native people on whose land you are perched. Please feel free to list them in the chat if you wish, as a way to honor them. Let us just take a moment to honor them in silence. And with that, I invite you to mute your audio until it's time to share later in the hour. Now, as I said, instead of our usual format, the person who was signed up to do this is unavailable due to health issues. But I thought about it. I thought, well, we could do something else. So we could take another theme, blah blah. But then I thought, it would really be interesting because some people have been saying, I'd love to learn more about how you meditate, what it means, how you do it. So I thought that instead of the usual format, which is a short input, silence, and then conversation, that we'd have longer input tonight, conversation in small groups, and then silence. So it's almost flipping it on its head. This is not meant to be the new format for Water. We don't always have to do it this way, and probably will never do it this way again. Rather, it's meant to be a pause in business as usual, a way, as many people in this field talk about it, to have a long, loving look at the real. That's how many people in the field of meditation define it, a long, loving look at the real. So many people have tried to do what we're going to do tonight, to try to say something about the unsayable, to speak about the unspeakable. Nobody's really, to my satisfaction, been able to say really what it is we do when we meditate. But as with the famous Supreme Court case about pornography, we know it when we see it. So I say simply, enjoy it tonight. Take your time, give yourself space, and open your eyes and your ears and your hearts to what people are going to say, and then take it where you will. I'm going to open with a few general remarks about meditation, why it's important, how it happens, and so forth. Then Cynthia Tootle will explain why people meditate and how some of the ways they do it relate to why they choose to meditate. She has lots of personal experience, so can speak of the varieties of options out there. And I'm sure she'll spark your imagination. And happily, she's going to do a meditation in June. So she won't be able to say everything she wants to tonight, but she will, in fact, talk about some of her many experiences. And then we'll turn to Brad Lutz, who will share resources. For example, the work of Thomas Keating and the offerings of the World Community for Christian Meditation, which was new to me. These go very well with the book that we shared during a water talk not so long ago, Nancy Sylvester's Faith Journey in an Entangled World. And I'm going to recommend this because I think that Nancy's work has been the foundation of what it is that we do. But Brad is going to talk to us as an oblate with the Holy Wisdom Monastery, and so there may be insights to his approaches. And Cynthia is going to talk to us as an expert on goddesses, as well as someone who does a lot of pastoral ministry through the Tacoma Metaphysical Society. So those two people will have a good handle on things. And then we'll take some time in small groups so that everyone will be able to share as they wish about what they do, how they find their way, the sorts of how-tos that are so helpful, or just the questions. I'm baffled. What is all this about? We'll undoubtedly find this session useful as well because there's lots of experience around this group. Just take a peek. And then we can put questions in the chat from those groups. And if we want to use those today, I don't think we're going to have time, but we certainly will use them and pick them up in future sessions. And when we regather after the small groups, Adrienne Corti will offer a short reading to introduce the silence, and then we'll sit for about 10 minutes. And then after we sit, she'll end our time with a blessing. I'll make the announcements, and then we'll keep the Zoom open after 8:30, but we'll finish at that point. So there won't be discussion after we sit tonight. The discussion will come first. I said we're flipping it on its head, and let's see how it works. So let's dive in. Let me say something briefly first of all, about myself in regard to meditation. I have often described myself as an amateur at prayer. Many of my colleagues, and I look around this circle and I see people who are, especially those in religious communities, who have so much more experience than I do. It's rather shameful that I would even pretend to offer a session on meditation. I am such an amateur at this. And yet, in 2000, I spent 2 weeks in the mountains of New Mexico at a meditation retreat led by Buddhists. It was supposed to be to prevent burnout among nonprofit leaders, and so they picked a bunch of us to come, and we lived in yurts. So I spent 2 weeks in a yurt trying to learn how to meditate and kind of really things that go with it. It was a wonderful experience with several periods of quiet every day, walking meditation, mindful eating at meals, morning and evening sitting as a group. I'd done some other meditation in several places before that, but that 2 weeks was really intense and very helpful. 2 years later, I spent 3 weekends with Nancy Sylvester, who has developed the Institute for Communal Contemplation and Dialogue. And some of you may have participated in that, but she set it up so there were groups, and there were about 15 in each group, a series called Engaging Impasse. It was a training on how to meditate together, not just privately, but to do it together, with the added twist of bringing some of the fruits of that meditation to conversation. Something I find very helpful, and if you've been in water meditations, that's pretty much the model that we use. I think it's a useful one, and I think it takes us a long ways into doing the two things that are so important. One is that interior work, and then having a way to articulate it and to bring something to the common good. What is it we do when we meditate? Again, this comes from an amateur at prayer, so don't take it to the bank. But I think the first thing we do is stop.
Yeah.
We stop our usual way of being. We stop thinking. Most people sit quietly. There's also walking meditation, or my favorite mode, which is swimming meditation. Lap after lap. I was out this morning, lap after lap, lap after lap, lap after lap. The mind freed from the thinking function and really absorbing, being, letting spirit rustle within the psyche, within the spirit. The second thing I think we do after we stop, because it means when I mean stop, I don't mean stop dead in your tracks, but stop doing the usual. Usually that means sitting, finding a comfortable position, sitting quietly, taking the time. The second thing that is required is attention. The common action of meditation is paying attention, not to the conscious mind, as usual when driving or reading or speaking, but leaving all that aside and creating space for the spirit. I've come to think of it as the spirit being watered in silence. The spirit watered in silence. And then the third thing I think that is a component of meditation, the stopping, the attention, and then simply the time. Stopping, attention, and time. Time is what it takes. It can't be done generally in just a short burst, but needs a space, needs a period of time set aside just for this, not for making the grocery list, not for imagining what will be for dinner, but simply for this. And that's what takes the the hard work of clearing away the space. So I would say to you, to move into meditation, to stay there, and then to slowly return certainly takes all of 10 minutes. We try to use 20. Some people do 30. I mean, there's just endless permutations of this. So how to do it? Give yourself space and time, set it aside. This is the hardest part. In fact, tonight you've done the hardest part, which is you got here. Once you get here, that's three-quarters of the hard work, because the meditation itself isn't really taxing at all, but clearing the space, stopping, beginning to attend, that's what takes the time. So we start with breathing, focusing on it, maybe with a word or phrase that helps you, and then to bring you back when your attention wanders. The practice of meditation is not called a practice for nothing. There's no one right way like hammering a nail, but you find your way with practice. I would simply say don't expect miracles, just take grace as it comes. Thus spake an amateur at prayer. I turn now to someone with a lot more experience than I have, Cynthia Tootle, who knows a lot more about this in many different modes than I do. Cynthia is an expert on goddesses and, as I mentioned earlier, minister at Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel, this after a long career as a civilian employee of the Army and trained as an engineer. So we all come to this in our own way and time. Cynthia, share with us your wisdom on this question. And thank
Thank
you.
thank you, Mary, and thank you for this opportunity. I thought it was interesting, your introduction, because I have a very different concept of meditation. Meditation as changing one's state of consciousness through one of a variety of techniques. And many people do it for many different reasons. Some of them are inherently spiritual and prayer, some aren't. But I feel like the type of meditation you use often depends on what you're trying to do. For instance, let's say you watch the news and your mind just goes nuts and you want to calm it down. There are multiple techniques particularly helpful for calming the mind down. And I'm just give you a couple very simple ones. One of them is listen to a piece of music. Now, this didn't mean you put music on while you do something. You sit down, as you were saying, you find a comfortable space, you put a time in, you put on a piece of music, and you listen to every note. That's where the ritual is. You're focusing on pick something beautiful, pick something that has meaning to you, listen to every note. It's a simple way. It is a meditation that takes you out of your daily state of consciousness and puts you in another place for a few minutes. It's nice when you can take an hour or whatever and clear your mind. Sometimes a 3-minute or 4-minute music is what you have. It's one way to do it. Another very quick way, I studied yoga, and there are many breath techniques. One that is very simple is simple. Sit down and breathe very loudly. And then soften the breath until you cannot hear the inhale and not hear the exhale. What you do when you do that is you have to calm the mouth, calm the vocal cords, calm the lungs. It is a very simple process. And as you calm your body that way, and because you're focusing on your body very simply, it allows you to go from busyness to a kind of stillness. So I just give you those as two quick possibilities. Another reason to meditate, and you may find this very bizarre, but is to escape pain or uh, or worry. Uh, it, my personal example is laying on a table face down with your bare boob hanging through and a doctor sticking a needle in it to do a biopsy for cancer. And my brain's going, oh my God, don't let me have cancer, please. I can't take chemo again. Da, da, da. It is very normal for your mind to get into a place like that. It's not helpful because you really need to find a way to relax your body and relax your mind. How do you do that? Well, one technique I have found, and this comes from multiple religious traditions, is chanting. You have to learn chanting through doing it out loud. It's very helpful to learn it doing it with other people. There's a whole variety of chants, and I've given some notes to Mary for to send out to you of some you can learn. The Hindu have a practice called kirtan, which is people get together, they do the chants. They do a chant. I particularly like it. It's vocal, musical, but not pretty. It's not about making a beautiful sound. It is about using your body to say a prayer in a ritual way. So your body is doing part of the work of praying. You do this for 15 or 20 minutes, and then they sit in silence. During the silence, the chant goes on in the mind. Now, the beauty of this is when you practice it a bit, and it doesn't take a gazillion years, like I was laying on the table, I started chanting with my mind, and my body knew to relax. So it worked. The thing that's interesting about this technique of meditation is that the practice of doing some action fills the mind, but then the mind can then relax the body when you need to do it silently. And I found that works actually. From personal experience, I will tell you that works. It is not hard to learn. You can pick whatever um, chant you like. I've always liked one that has a certain rhythm because I practice it walking. So I like one. My favorite one is a goddess one. Om Mata Kali, Om Mata Durga, Om Mata Kali, Om Mata Durga. Pick whatever you like. Get it in a way that the sound is really a pleasure to you to make. And then when you need to bring calmness into your body, you can use it by chanting. Don't get too hung up on whether or not you sound good because it's not about sounding good. It's about the body making the noise of prayer. And I think many of you may have done some version of this, so maybe speaking to the choir, but think about that being preparation for when you need to calm the body at a later date. Now, maybe the one that you've more familiar with is using meditation to obtain guidance or inspiration or connection to the divine. I have found that guided meditation is very effective for many people, and I do a teleconference group meditation, guided meditation every Wednesday night. I've sent the information to Mary. If you'd like to join us, please do. What we do is it's interesting when you meditate with other people, even though I meditate with people that are like you all around the country, around the world, most of mine are in the country, but we gather on the spirit plane and we journey together, guided by some words I have. We have done such things as gone to places that are war torn to provide peaceful moments. We have prayed for healing for various people. We do um, the goddess guides me to do all kinds of things on Wednesday nights. Please join us if you would like to. Um, the other way I have found that's been very useful for guidance is an app called Expand. It's been created by the Monroe Institute, which is a nonprofit that is working to expand consciousness. They have all kinds of meditations. The app is free. You can do 5-minute meditations, long ones, and they're all kinds of topics. So you could integrate with your higher self. You can do all kinds of things. I have found this very, very effective. It uses sound technology. So if you put it on your phone and listen to it with earbuds, you're getting the effect of technology that helps support reaching an intense meditative state that is like, takes the place of doing years of sitting and meditating because they manage to help get the brain into the right state. And I found them very beautiful. They also have unguided meditations, which are basically various music. So that's also useful. And I'm going to do a guided meditation in June with water. So come back and you'll get a taste of a guided meditation at that time. I'm not sure where I'll be guiding. I always find, especially on Wednesday nights, that the goddesses tell me what we need to do. And it's often reflective of something that's going on in the world that needs our attention. And it may not be our attention, may be just creating a vortex of loving energy and sending that loving energy to a situation. Sometimes we go off far away from the earth and look back at it so we can gain perspective, which is another thing you can do in meditation. Anyway, I could go on and on, but if but I think I should pass it on to, I think Brad's next. So Brad, it's up
Cynthia,
to you.
yeah, Cynthia, thank you so much. What a rich presentation. And I hope, God willing, I'll be here in June for that meditation. I've always enjoyed yours. I want to just assure people so that you're not writing furiously as I am. We will take notes from these presentations and we will provide you tomorrow or the next day with the video of this session as well as the notes, the things that people have told us that they have found useful. So please don't stress yourself by trying to take notes. Yes, I will turn now to Brad Lutz. And again, many of you know Brad from other excellent meditations that he has provided. He's a retired United Church of Christ pastor, lives in Florida. And Brad, share with us what you found helpful, maybe out of your Holy Wisdom Monastery Oblate experience or from other parts of your life as well. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, thank you, Mary, and thanks for the opportunity to share. And I want to build on some of the things that Mary said and also that Cynthia shared, because I think so much of that is valuable because meditation is such a broad term and has so many sources throughout throughout history and practice. The first thing I want to do is share 3 resources, and don't worry about writing these down because I will send my notes to Mary that will have all the links for these things. The Cleveland Clinic actually has a very succinct overview of meditation, very general, and they also on their website talk about its benefits. And it's a site worth checking. It's very basic, so for some people it might be too basic, But for those who just want to explore some basic material, the Cleveland Clinic has this marvelous site. Two others, the World Community for Christian Meditation, which is a global spiritual community united in the practice of meditation using a mantra. And this was taught originally by John Main, and today the work is carried on by Lawrence Freeman, both of whom are Benedictine monks. And they also on their website offer a free online course on how to meditate in their particular style using the mantra. And as both Cynthia and Mary mentioned, sometimes we meditate just using a word or a simple chant. It's very much the style of the World Community for Christian Meditation. The other resource is Contemplative Outreach, which is located in Colorado. They teach the practice of centering prayer, which is a very particular kind of meditation. It was originally taught by Father Thomas Keating, who founded Contemplative Outreach. And what it does is embody a common desire for divine transformation. And while both of these programs are in the Christian tradition, their teachers and proponents really do embrace very strong interfaith connections and practices and engage in intermonastic dialogue that exists. I want to talk a little bit about my experience from being a Benedictine oblate for more than 25 years at Holy Wisdom Monastery in Madison, Wisconsin, which is an ecumenical community of women in the Benedictine tradition. For me, my practice of meditation stems from the original Latin meaning of meditatio, which means to think deeply about something. And as a Benedictine oblate, I've learned to distinguish between two words, meditation and contemplation. And these are words that most often we use very interchangeably. But both of these in the Benedictine tradition are steps in Lectio Divina, or sacred reading, which is usually of scripture, but not necessarily so. It can be anything. Poetry is another great source for practicing Lectio. Benedict, in his rule for monastics, encourages a daily practice of Lectio, of reading, which isn't just sitting down and reading, it involves several steps. The second step is called meditation, and it involves thinking, using your brain deeply about what has been read. The text is held very lightly and it's gently considered from various angles. It's kind of a playful, conscious awareness of thoughts, hopes, memories, imagination, desires, fears that all speak to life's specific condition from something that's been read or heard or seen or experienced. And the emphasis isn't on analysis, so it's not that kind of thinking that's trying to analyze everything, but it's about keeping the mind open and allowing spirit to inspire meaning for what has been read, heard, seen, or experienced. So rather than disengaging the mind, Benedictine meditation focuses the mind with thoughts related to the reading. I like to think of it as mindful thinking. Marjorie Thompson, who is a spiritual writer, in her book Soul Feast, uses a very pastoral image for describing meditation. She says the image of a cow chewing its cud is perfectly suited for the practice of meditation in the Christian tradition. We can all visualize what it looks like, processing and reprocessing the food until it's fully digested. I've always thought it's interesting. I like to sort of shock people and say, how is a cow like prayer? Well, Marjorie Thompson makes that connection because meditation in this tradition is about chewing on something and digesting it until it brings forth new life and new energy. Contemplation, the other word that gets used, is the final stage in the practice of Lectio Divina. And contemplation is about a quiet opening to God without words or images. A lot of teachers of Lectio refer to this as simply resting in God. It's union with the source of life and love. It's the cream that gets produced by the rumination of meditation. So contemplation is about stopping, as Mary said earlier. It's about stopping. It's about stopping the thinking. It's about stopping the doing and simply to enjoy being in the presence of the divine. Now, I think awareness of all these definitions is important, especially for interfaith practice, because what Buddhists call meditation, Christians call contemplation. And what Christians call contemplation, Buddhists call meditation. You could learn more about that by looking at Thomas Merton's book called The Gethsemane Experience that grew out of his interfaith dialogue with Buddhist monks. But anyway, here's how this works for me at a water meditation. I listen to the brief presentation carefully, often with paper and pencil to jot down anything that stands out to me. And it may stand out to me because it inspires me or because it annoys me, but it stands out. That's the important thing. And I make a note of that. Then in the 22 minutes of meditation, I think about what seized my attention. I consider why it stood out, what connections it makes to my life and my daily experience. I notice any feelings that arise in me as a result, and I ponder any questions that what stood out might elicit from me, and I reflect on any sense of invitation that what I heard might be asking of me. Is it asking me to change something, to acknowledge some truth in myself? And I keep all this in mind during our time of contemplative conversation, listening to the responses of others to discern additional insight. If I took notes, I may come back to these later for further rumination, especially if I replay the video of the meditation when it's posted on the Water website. Well, I hope I haven't confused you. I always have to make sure I don't confuse myself. But the advice I hold close to my heart in all spiritual practice is this. Brother Lawrence, in The Practice of the Presence of God, a classic in Christian mysticism, says essentially, don't get hung up on the methods. That's important advice. And in the Rule of Benedict, Benedict says, we're always beginners. So, Mary, no amateurs, just always beginners together. In other words, there's no real experts, there's no right or wrong. And to paraphrase Henry Nouwen, he said, in my paraphrase, the best way to meditate is to meditate. The best way to try it is just to try it. Just do it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Brad. Thank you to Cynthia. I knew that I would learn much more than I would be able to share tonight. So I'm indebted to both of you, and I know we all are. What a good idea this was to really get, don't you think? I mean, I see Margaret Ellen's applauding, and when I think of the experienced people in this, although I'll go with you, Brad, and say we're all beginners, but some are more beginning than others, and I'm just delighted that we have such a great group here tonight. What we're going to do now is move into small groups for about, I'm hoping about 12 to 15 minutes. And this will allow us all to talk and to express our questions, our concerns, reflect on what we've heard. It's been a variety of things tonight. Just have an opportunity to share with each other. So, Wed, if you'd be so kind, time to share experiences, what works, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to know from others if you're asking someone with experience. And then when we reconvene, Adrienne will pick up with a short presentation, including a 10-minute meditation. So, Wed, if you'd be so good, and then we'll just come back when the time is right. We'll bring you back in about 12 minutes. Thank you all. So appreciate your being part of this. Yeah, nice to see everybody. We just to see the whole group. How lovely. How was your, I hope you had a wonderful time. What was it?
That was great.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Wonderful. Thank you all again for participating. I'm going to turn now to Adrienne Corti and have an experience with her of her many ways of looking at these questions. She is a Canadian colleague, a longtime teacher of languages and religion, a woman of the world, as I like to think of her, who's traveled extensively. So she has much on which to meditate. So, Adrienne, would you lead us now in some of your ideas on this, and then in a short presentation that will lead us into a period of 10-minute meditation. We still hope to finish as we usually do at the half hour. So go ahead, Adrienne, please.
Yes, one of the books that I've been using is Coming to Our Senses by John Kabat-Zinn. Maybe I mute it. Yeah, by John Kabat-Zinn. And I think that whole thing of being attentive to what we have right now all the time, even to look at your hands and think of what have your hands done today? How many things have you touched? How many people have you touched physically? What is the work that your hands have achieved? What are the meals that you prepared? Just any number of things. So what I wanted to begin with is a reading from William Stafford that's entitled, "You Reading This, Be Ready," because it speaks to me of something of what meditation is about. It invites us to pay attention to all of our senses, which are inseparable from us and which we often tend to take for granted just because they are so much a part of us and we just, forget to acknowledge them. So William said, "Starting here, what do you want to remember? How sunlight creeps along the shining floor? What scent of old wood hovers? What softened sound from outside fills the air? Will you ever bring a better gift for the world than the breathing respect that you carry wherever you go right now? Are you waiting for time to show you some better thoughts? When you turn around, starting here, lift this new glimpse that you found. Carry into evening all that you want from this day. This interval you spent reading or hearing this, keep it for life. What can anyone give you greater than now? Starting here, right in this room, when you turn around. So during the next 8 or so minutes of silence, you may want to bring your breath to each of your senses, breathing in awareness of what they experience each moment of each day, and breathing out gratitude for the gifts that they offer to others in service. Because if we're not about service and love, What are we about? So breathing in and breathing out. Bringing attention to that breath of life that is within you. Noticing it, just noticing that breath. Is it shallow or is it deep? Where is that breath flowing to? If it is shallow, allow it to deepen with each inward breath. Sending it to every cell in your body. Feeling each cell come alive with the breath that enters them. Being mindful of the trillions of cells that course through your body, the vessels, the blood that flows through each and every day, whether we're aware of it or not. That breath of life, that spirit, that inspiration, indwelling. And with the outward breath, breathing out any toxins, anything that is keeping you from experiencing life to the full. So breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. We enter into silence. So our closing blessing is from John O'Donoghue to bless the space between us. And it's called For the Senses. May the touch of your skin register the beauty of the otherness that surrounds you. May your listening be attuned to the deeper silence where sound is honed to bring distance home. May the fragrance of a breathing meadow refresh your heart and remind you, you are a child of the earth. And when you partake of food and drink, may your taste quicken to the gift and sweetness that flows from the earth. May your inner eyes see through the surfaces and glean the real presence of everything that meets you. May your soul beautify the desire of your eyes, that you might glimpse the infinity that hides in the simple sights that seem worn to your usual eyes. And may you have a restful sleep this night as you breathe in and breathe out.
And so we end a different evening of meditation at Water with deep thanks to Cynthia and Brad and Adrienne and to everyone for this informative and inspiring evening. I hope that it opens all of us to new forms of creativity and increases our ability to bring to our contemplative and meditative experiences the power to send energy to the needs of the world. We will reconvene on Monday, April the 7th, 7:30 p.m., with Virginia Day on the theme, "And That Made All the Difference," from a famous poem by Robert Frost, looking at choices and decisions that we've made. With that, we close our session tonight. And I simply will mention a couple of Water programs. One is the Rosemary Ganley Essay Contest 2025 edition. Feminists Change the World, 650 words at a time. Look on our website for how to submit your entry by the 1st of April. And then I can tell you excitedly that on the 12th of March, which is this Wednesday, we will be looking at this wonderful book, Schooling the Nation, The Success of the Canterbury Academy for Black Women. And it's really the story of Black women and white women working together. And we will have with us a great professor, Jennifer Reisinger, who will be talking about women inspiring and encouraging one another. I highly recommend it. Wednesday the 12th, 1 o'clock with Jennifer Reisinger, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll open the discussion of how allies can use privilege to create social change. And then on Tuesday, March 18th at 7:30 p.m. will be the monthly water ritual with Diane New and the water community, celebrating National Women's History Month, moving forward together, women educating and inspiring generations. I invite you to put anything in the chat that you'd like to leave as a parting word to us, and know that you will be getting soon the notes from this evening. I hope it was helpful. It was an experiment and you were part of it, so thank you so very much. We'll leave the Zoom open now for conversation for those who wish to stay and talk. But to all of us, be well, be at peace. Take time to sit, to attend, to contemplate, to meditate, all that is now part of our world, even in these very difficult times. Thank you very much.